Alrighty, folks, we have a contributing writer to Housing Wire, somebody that is a must follow on Twitter or X. And she writes an amazing Substack, which I poured over the last couple of days. And she is a GFC1 survivor. Let's welcome Melody to the show. How you doing, Melody?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, one of the things that you have it, first off, you're a wonderful writer. Writing is a gift, and you have it. And I'm jealous
I'm
because
blushing, but
when
thank
I
you.
write, I screw up words, misspelling. I run. It's all kinds of a mess. I'd much rather just speak than write. So people need to meet. It's a pleasure to read your article. So
Oh, wow.
very well
Thank
done.
you. Wow. Thank you so much.
One thing that I really felt, and I do mean felt, in one of the articles I read yesterday preparing for today, is you were in, I'm going to call it loss mitigation. It may have been called something else, but
Sure.
you were responsible for reading these heartfelt letters, right? One
Right.
of the things that a lot of people don't realize today is back in GFC1, the banks wouldn't work to you until you were 90 days late. Then you were 90 days late. You had to submit a hardship letter. And apparently you were one of the individuals that had to open and read those, which I can
Correct.
only imagine was not a lot of fun.
No, it was really not a lot of fun. And I think one thing too that a lot of people misunderstand is that because I worked at one of the big five servicers and originators, is that it wasn't necessarily our choice about that 90-day. Like, a lot of what we lend is for Fannie, Freddie,
Mhm.
and for FHA, VA. And there's a whole bunch of investor guidelines that you have to follow. And as the banks, we didn't get a lot of options with those loans specifically. With our private loans, which were a much bigger portion back then, of course, we had some leeway and we did a lot of different things. But yes, it was. So I ran default after helping us with our bankruptcy and our consent orders and AG settlement, which are just big words for how we all got in trouble. and so and
Lots of
so
people got in trouble. Yes.
we all got in trouble, but never the ones that really should have gotten in trouble. That's the funny thing.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yeah, my organization took TARP. They just didn't give the servicing arm any money. So we were starved. We didn't have enough people. So there's, it's a very complicated picture, but they came in because we had gone into bankruptcy, and Fannie and Freddie were threatening to pull our servicing if we didn't get our seriously delinquent numbers down, which at the time nobody was, because states were on hold. So it was
Oh
almost
yeah.
like they knew we were under their thumb. And so we had a different sort of expectation than many. So put it this way, my servicing president put me in charge of that. And I had to figure out how to get these loans resolved. And part of that too is you really do have to understand who's actually struggling, who's not. And every single loss mitigation application, and that happens today too, you have to have one of those hardship letters, and they are brutal to read, just
Oh,
brutal. Yeah.
yeah.
So
I can only imagine. And again, because we both survived GFC one, which I think is a great title, which implies GFC two is around the corner. We'll get into that later. But I'm curious, and I look back historically. I never read any of these letters. I have friends and family and strategic faults. It became a whole thing, right?
yes, I
But
did.
a lot of the, kind of Monday morning quarterback, if you will, kind of just looking in the rearview mirror, a lot of the pain was from payment shock. At least that's, you're right. Because hey, we got a loan. It was affordable at the 2-year market reset, and now it's not affordable. And oh, by the way, my husband or wife lost his job, and it was kind of all these compounding things.
Yeah.
So when you think back to the letters you got, I'm guessing, and again, purely a guess, a lot of them was because of the payment shocks.
Well, this is what's funny. And
Okay,
so, because
like it.
that's the kindling, right? So we
Yeah.
all know subprime was the kindling, and we all have seen The Big Short, but the Fed has written some amazing papers, as well as Brookings has done studies, as well as just my experience. We understood that's how it started. That's not how it
Correct.
ended. And
Oh
so,
no, you're right.
yeah. And when I took over in 2012 is when I actually took over default.
Oh, 12. Okay. So
12,
we're
because
we're
I
like
was
3 years in.
yeah, 3 years in, because we were just trying to survive. Like, we really thought, we're hoping we wouldn't have to go into bankruptcy. So we made it a lot longer than some of the bigger ones that
Okay.
failed right away. and we were struggling for dear life. So I took over in 2012, and by that point, all of that had been washed out. And it was just, it was either your strategic defaulters, or it was your true, they were prime borrowers when this all started. And they either lost their job, or simply, and this is what I think a lot of people are missing this time around, is that when those home prices go up, so do your property taxes, and so do your insurance, because your assessed value is higher, your replacement cost is higher. And so because everybody looks back and says subprime, 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 they miss actually what happens. And then a lot of people will say, oh, but we have to have the job losses. No, actually, that was just like throwing, gasoline on the fire. But already there were people who, when they took out that mortgage, they believed one of two things: either they'd be able to afford it, they weren't thinking about those increased taxes, increased insurance, or essentially they thought they could refi, and
refi till you die. Yes.
Correct. Yes. But now, instead of refi till you die, we're hearing date the rate, right? And so date the rate. And I hate it so much, and I hear it. So I still have active client books. I'm still working with mortgage lenders right now. And I cringe, every time I hear, because sure, we've created a cute little phrase, but is it really, any different than refi till you die? I mean, it's not. So anyway, So when I got in, it was really your prime borrowers that were under stress.
So I want to walk through that, because again, I agree with you. I went through the whole thing, right? Meaning I was doing investing back then. So you're absolutely right. It started with kind of the subprime, the payment shock, oh my God, my payment went from 12 to 1,800. That led to inventory. That inventory wasn't being absorbed. And let's also not forget, banks could suddenly change the rules, right? Because what happened, in my opinion, my memory, we went from being able to get unlimited loans as investors to 10 to 4. So one of the things that happened last time is you not only had supply coming on from distressed sellers, you also effectively removed demand. So supply starts stacking, and then pretty soon you're left with cash buyers.
That's right.
And guess what? They're cheap. They're not paying squat. They're paying land value, right?
100%.
This is not hard, folks.
No. And already we're hearing the studies about, so NAR put out a study a couple of months ago about, they looked at all the investors that were buying, and they showed the net price reductions when investors bought. They're not usually stupid.
If it's not 30% off list price, I'm not playing. I mean, what are we doing here, folks? I'll do a deal, but it ain't going to be at list price.
100%.
Guys are crazy. Yeah. So then just for folks that don't know the word strategic default, right? So basically you're in your home, you're still employed. I'll paint that picture. You can make the payment, but you decide not to.
That's right.
Because there's no equity. I mean, I had a friend, I wrote about it in my first book, One Rental at a Time. After Katrina, way back when it hit Louisiana, the government created some kind of special depreciation schedule or something.
Sure.
So he goes out there and buys 4 brand new homes. And, for a while, it was okay.
Yeah.
And then, subprime blew up, and then property values fell, and then the economy was still crap in Louisiana. And then pretty soon he's like, well, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, it was an alligator, meaning he was feeding it $1,000 a month, $250 per house. Wow. He got tired of doing that.
Yeah.
He never lost a job.
Yeah.
Here as I know, he was never afraid of losing his job. He just got irritated with writing $1,000 check on an asset that was worth less than he bought. So he said, you know what? Everybody else is defaulting. I'm going to let all 4 of them go at the same time.
Yep.
And that's a strategic default.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
So now we go. So a lot of those loans, my words, not yours, were what was called Alt A. This kind of this kind of gap between subprime and prime. Alt A, low doc. I mean, here's the crazy thing.
Thank you.
My last loan. I kid you not. The mortgage broker I was using said, sign this. I'm like, there's nothing on the form. Oh, don't worry. We have your file.
Yeah. late stage, right?
Yeah,
Late
the
stage.
total top. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And,
so that's crazy.
to me, DSCR is Alt-A and stated income, and now I'm not saying
Probably, yeah,
every lender is doing that. Don't get me wrong.
exactly. It
But
is
I will
morphed
tell
into
you,
that late stage. Yes, I agree with
and
that.
there are many that are doing bank statement loans, stated
Yes.
income.
How
And
about Air DNA on Airbnb properties? Really? Really? DSCR, Airbnb. That sounds like fun.
yeah, and that's exactly what's happening. And they're doing it on these inflated values that AirDNA is putting out there. Because I mean, I think
Well, in fairness to Air DNA, they're probably not inflated. I don't want to begrudge them. They're current data. They're not future lower values. I don't want to begrudge their data. It's a wild ass assumption.
exactly, without overlaying macro
Yeah.
factors, without overlaying demographics, without
Trend and
overlaying all of that stuff. And so, fair enough, but I will say that, I've done a lot of looking at properties, and if I were an investor, I would think that I was going to be making more money than if I didn't do other research. And so, by the way, you should always, as I'm sure you always coach, do other research.
You've got to do the work. I mean, that's so again, I got 22 years into this. It's never been a better time to do the work. Understand what a great deal is average. We'll get into all of that, but we haven't even got to prime borrowers. So we did subprime, which went to Alt-A, and now prime. And this is the important part, because that was probably 2013, 14. And where I bring this up is there are a lot of people that I term crash bros.
Yeah.
That are making wild ass calls about an epic housing collapse in the next 3 months. I'm like, you idiots you're idiots and morons. If you want to talk about a multi-year journey, we can have that conversation. Yes. I'm game. Yes. But if you're going to come out and tell me we're going to have a 15, a 20, a 30% drop in 3 months, you're a moron. Just
housing moves way slower.
Way too price elasticity. Yeah. I mean, you're not even 90 days late in 3 months. So, I mean,
no, and you're going to get caught in all of these. Since COVID, the lost MIP programs are streamlined. Like, so if you're 90 days late, I have to send you a modification in the mail, even if you won't even talk to me.
Exactly.
So no, it's never going to happen in 3 months. And anybody, but I can tell you it's accelerating, but not in 3 months.
So let's get there. So again, I read a lot of your articles knowing you were coming here. No, I thought it was great. I honestly, I went to read one just so I wasn't uninformed. I'm like, damn, she can write. So I read some more. I must have read 5 or 6. And they're on Substack, right? That's correct. Did I say that? That's the first time I'd ever been to Substack.
Oh, so wow.
First time I went there just for you.
Oh, wow. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably go back just for you, because I went to look at some other stuff and it's crap, but your stuff was pretty good.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the one thing I read that I thought was interesting, and I think some of this, again, just me and you talking, might be some of that painful history you had. You might be some PTSD, right? You put out you put out some data about delinquencies. I think it was 30 days and 90 days. And they were up noticeably month on month. And the trend is clear. Yeah, 60s. The 30s. Yeah. So the trend is clear. Totally get it. It was clear as day.
Yeah.
We are still below historical
100%.
averages.
Except for FHA and VA. They're above pre-pandemic highs. But yes,
I missed that.
We are, especially on the SDQ or seriously delinquent, we're very, very low. Yep.
Yeah. So the question I have for you, because I respect what you've done, all of that, is I'm wondering, and this is just a query. We obviously came out of this whole forbearance, can't start anything nonsense. And I know, for being in the game, there are real reasons people need to be foreclosed on: death, divorce,
100%.
All of this.
Yep.
For a couple of years, those were stuck.
That's right.
So my thinking is some of this early variability might just be unsticking stuff that should have been, and frankly needs to go through the process. Is that reasonable, or am I just hoping?
No. I think that is completely so. That's part of it for sure. And so what I'm already seeing, though, which might surprise you, so I'm definitely seeing, because what happened during COVID is everybody got a crap ton of benefits. I mean, they were unbelievable.
Money.
partial claim, payment deferral, it's not
Yeah.
even being actually reported in our balances right now, that payment deferral. We can talk about that later. But a lot of people used up their benefits, you know, and so now those are the ones that basically are making it through that 30, 60 plus. That's one component. And FHA VA specifically, because we have doubled Ginnie Mae, our FHA VA MBS since 2009. That was something that shocked me and I didn't realize.
Wow. I did not know that.
So we went from around 7% to 16%. And those
And
loans,
for folks that don't know that Ginnie Mae, what does Ginnie Mae do?
So Ginnie Mae, so basically you deliver to Ginnie Mae your FHA, your VA USD loans, and they package them up and securitize them. And so, and theoretically they're insured. And I'm sure we don't have enough time to talk about that on the show. But what I can tell you is that they never pay that insurance. Okay.
No,
and so, but a lot of people get into the Ginnie Mae game because the spread is much higher, on those servicing rights initially, but they don't understand you're going to pay that back in spades later on. So anyway, we've doubled that. And so already those borrowers, some people call it government sponsored subprime. And I would have been hesitant to say that until very recently when I started looking at some of the credit scores and really was blown away. Like, I mean, lower than I saw in the GFC. Okay. And
so sub 600.
So yes. I've seen a 450. And so, I mean, it's a 450 now. Don't get me wrong. Okay. It's a 450 now. But they didn't have any delinquent mortgage payments. So what's bringing it down to 450? Likely they've got mortgages somewhere else and it's probably a fraudster loan. So, but what I'm seeing right now is kind of your most vulnerable, and that's your FHA VA that are making it through, and that just probably won't be able to do a workout. And then you've got the investor / fraudster class. So
I think so. I call it financial engineering because I want it to be a sexy term. I don't know about you. Yeah, financial injury. There is so much pain coming to the financial engineers. I'm on record 2 or 3 years ago. I sold some apartments because I'm like, these cap rates are crazy. And then they went extremely lower. So I lost out on $1 million or whatever. I had no idea that caps were going to go to, 4% for an 8% asset, right? It's just crazy. And then you get Airbnb and you get arbitrage and you get, anytime somebody tells me real estate investing is easy, I run the other way. That's why 100%. I still speak, because I want, I went to an event in San Jose, California, 2018. I just retired. And, I'm there in front of 120 engineers, computer scientists, people, whatever, right? And I give them my one rental at a time story, conservative, do the work, only do positive cash flow. And all the questions were, hey, I got $100,000. I want to be a syndicator. I want to do this. I want to do that. And that's the slow and boring way. I want to do the fast and now way. Right. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. You guys are not operators. You're financial engineers. This is going to blow up.
It's going to be so bad.
It's going to be so bad.
And it worries me because a lot of them were all cash sales. And I'll put that in quotation marks.
What do you think? So let's talk about that. Because again, when NAR reports all cash, which is roughly, I don't know, 21 to 30%. Okay.
Yeah.
So how much of that do you think is really all cash? Because you and I have been doing this a while. You think it's zero? It can't be zero.
I think that it is way lower than we think, because even the top 20% would, to that financial engineering conversation and our hyper financialization, a top 20%er is going to say, well, I'm not going to take that out of the bank.
Yeah. Why do I do that? I get a 3% mortgage.
Right. Or I have this other property. Let me cash out, refi that.
Yeah, let me do an equity line there.
And then put it over here. And so, of course, it's not zero. There are really filthy rich people, but most of those filthy rich people say filthy rich because they take advantage of every single advantage.
Yeah, they stack cash. And then when the tide goes out, they buy stuff at 50 cents on the dollar. I mean,
Right.
that's how they get rich, for heaven's sakes.
They do. And they nickel and dime everything. They expense their bubble gum. They know how to work this game,
Yeah.
So how high is it? I really couldn't tell you,
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna guess 10%. I'm gonna guess 8
and I
to
think that's a
10%.
good fair. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
say that, right?
Let's just say that. But that means 2/3 of that 30 aren't real cash, which is the point of this conversation, which is I'm taking from Paul to pay Peter, and
correct.
I'm doing an Equiline and I'm paying it back with some DSCR loan, or you're playing shell games. So
or I'm taking out a hard money loan and a mortgage at the same time, because the title companies can send it for recording and nobody will see it. I mean, I'm seeing that already. Yeah. So yeah.
So let's play this out, right? I joked earlier, GFC 1 survivor, which implies GFC 2.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask, do you see a GFC 2 sometime in the future? We'll start with that conversation, and then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we've been in what I'm going to term a silent depression since 2007. And I give a hashtag to Emil Kalinowski, who kind of came up with the term. We've labor
silent depression.
Okay. Silent depression. Because, think about the job market in 2018. Think about it right now. Everything's so wonderful, but it's low paying jobs. We've seen wages. Sure, they had a little run up when everybody thought they were getting rich, but now the rate of change on the downside is going pretty fast. So, there's a lot of questions about how healthy our job market is. And, and so many people stopped participating after 2007. And, a whole bunch of different things. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll talk about GFC 2. So, I study kind of the shadow banks. I study what's going on behind the scenes in the monetary system. I'm a big fan of Your Dollar University, that really very huge Jeff Snyder kind of monetary expert.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is, with this credit crunch that's happening, we're seeing the choking of the system.
Yes.
And I think that, the shadow banks are now, people disagree, but either 1.5 to 2.5 times bigger than they were in the GFC. And so, everybody can talk about their capital ratios and their strong balance sheets, but,
that makes me feel better. Yeah.
When the shadow banks choke, this is all interconnected. This is going to impact your big banks too. So people talking about how healthy they are, and so Lehman looked healthy. Everybody looked healthy. Like and two, just like every test, you can pass the stress test from the Fed because you learn how to take it.
Yeah, the rules, right? It's not hard.
You know the rules, you become really good at it. It's a standardized test. And we know auditors don't ever really audit. You tell them, I used to want to add them to figure it out for themselves, but they come over to my desk and be like, I don't understand this trading security. Yeah. Okay, but shouldn't you? But anyway, digress.
Why are you here exactly?
Exactly.
Yeah, so
it's happening. Yeah.
so I think it's very clear that liquidity is draining from the system, right? If you look at M2, it's down, first time since the Great Depression, negative, all that, and going lower. That's kind of the goal of Jerome Powell, if not the goal of the entire Fed, is to get the nonsense out of the system.
Yeah.
But I guess the kind of closing thought, Melody, is, again, back to the earlier comment about the crash bros who are going after clicks and not trying to help. I think it's fair to say that this has orders, if not years, to play out, right? Because even the GFC 1, it may have cracked with subprime in, call it 08, but it ran through 13, 14. Is that fair? Is that fair?
I think so. Unless we have an exogenous event or the UFOs decide to show themselves or whatever.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
That could change the trajectory. And if we have a credit event this fall, which it feels very much like we might be in store for one.
So define a credit event, meaning like government shutdown October 1st, or what do you mean credit event?
So any of these shadow banks taking a Lehman, like Evergrande, any of those, even the ones globally. So that could really change things if layoffs accelerate. But if that doesn't happen, I agree with you that we'll see kind of positive home prices in the year. We'll probably get a 5 to 6% decline next year. I think really 25 is when we would see kind of a woo, you
Okay.
know, and then a couple more years of declines. I mean, this is kind of my macro outlook right now, but of course, that's the path.
Right.
Anything could kind of
Anything change.
land on the
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah.
Just kind
I think the one thing that, and we'll let you go in a minute, but one of the things that we got right on this channel that I didn't hear anybody else talk about a year ago was, guys, you're talking about price, and a higher rate does nothing immediately to price. It
that's right.
crushes transactions, right?
It
You take this
crushes them.
affordability scale, you throw it to the second highest ever, only 1981 is worst. That's
Right.
demand. And then, oh,
Right.
by the way, you got Jerome Powell and his buddies breaking the housing market. You got all these
Right.
people with sub 3 and sub 4% mortgages.
Right.
They're not motivated to move. So
Mm.
I have no idea whether, because the only way you get a housing crash is supply, dwarfing demand. That's not
Right.
coming in 23. I don't think that's coming in 24. If we want to talk about 25, 26, 27, that's a great conversation. But
Yeah.
everybody wants it now.
Yeah.
And that's not how housing works.
I think it's coming faster than you might think, but
Okay.
I agree. I'm seeing acceleration. Even the most conservative that go around screaming about inventory are seeing that we're going out of trend right now.
Okay.
Usually you peak in August, and we're going like this. And
well, that's it. You know why that is? Again, days on market is going to go to 40 plus days. Days on market is the variable to watch, because new listings are still trending at all-time lows, but inventory is rising. How does that happen?
Right.
No demand, days on market. Days on market are going to explode higher. And then investors like me, we are cheap. We're going to start writing offers at 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar and find the motivated sellers.
That's right.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? What is your Substack? Where should we send them?
Sure. So on Twitter, M3_Melody, MELODY. It's the M3 Melody Substack and M3 Melody YouTube as well. So you can find me on all of those platforms, and then Melody Wright on LinkedIn, WRIGHT. So
awesome. Well, hopefully we'll get you back sometime. We'll talk about being
Absolutely.
GFC2, and I would love to share with you my 53-year spreadsheet next time. Melody, thank you so much.
To see it. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.